the early hours of the morning. When the world is still and the chaos hasn't yet begun, you are given a sacred opportunity, a window into your own soul. That time, it is not for checking messages. It's not for scrolling through someone else's life. It's for building yours. The way you begin your day is the way you live your life. Do you rise with purpose, or do you roll over into distraction? Do you command your energy, or does the world take it from you before you even open your eyes? The most fulfilled lives are not accidental. They are designed, starting with one consistent choice each morning. Stillness. Before the world demands something from you, give yourself the gift of silence. Just sit, breathe, connect. Listen to the whisper that only speaks in quiet. That whisper will guide you more than any headline ever could. Gratitude, not in theory, in practice. Name 3 things. Feel them. Let them change your chemistry. A grateful heart is a magnet for clarity, power, and peace. Movement. It doesn't matter if it's a stretch, a walk, or a workout. When you move your body, you awaken your mind. The energy you create in motion becomes the energy you carry into your mission. Intention. Ask yourself, what do I want to feel today? Who do I choose to be? That question is power. That decision is leadership. Every morning is an audition for the life you say you want, and most people are sleeping through it. Stop starting your day by reacting to the world. Start by building yourself, because when your morning is anchored in power, your life becomes unshakable. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present. The secret to a focused, fulfilled life, it's not out there. It's in what you do before the world wakes up. Let me know if you want the voiceover or visual style suggestion for this. The first hour shapes the entire day, not just because it's morning, but because it's the moment when you decide who you are going to be before the world tries to decide for you. That hour is sacred. It's where your power lives. It's where your peace waits. And most people throw it away. They roll over, grab their phone, and instantly hand over their focus, their energy, their soul to distraction, to noise, to someone else's agenda. And then they wonder why they feel drained, confused, behind. But you, if you're going to live a focused, fulfilled life, must treat that first hour like your foundation. Because it is. It is the starting block of your greatness. Every morning, the world offers you a blank canvas. And in that first hour, you choose the colors. You choose whether the day will be painted with clarity or chaos, strength or stress, purpose or passivity. And that choice is not made in what you think about doing. It's made in what you actually do. You can't just wish for a powerful day. You have to build it brick by brick, breath by breath, starting with the moment your eyes open. The people who live in alignment, who walk into every room grounded, confident, and composed, they're not lucky. They're not special. They're intentional. They've learned to own their mornings so the day doesn't own them. They've stopped surrendering the first hour of their life to chaos. Instead, they've made it a ritual. They start with stillness, no noise, no news, no outside opinions, just them, their breath, their soul. Because that stillness isn't empty. It's full of power. In that silence, they hear what matters. They hear what they need to do. They hear the whisper of purpose that gets drowned out once the day begins shouting. That whisper is the compass. That whisper is the truth. But you can't hear it if you're already scrolling, already comparing, already rushing. That's why the first hour is everything. You don't find focus in the middle of the storm. You create it before the storm begins. You don't stumble into fulfillment halfway through a chaotic day. You plant it in the quiet morning soil and let it grow from there. The first hour isn't about what time you wake up. It's about what you do with the time you have. And if you spend it pouring into yourself, the rest of the day becomes a reflection of that overflow. Wake up and breathe. Wake up and move. Wake up and speak life over yourself. You don't need motivation from the outside when you can ignite it from within. Start with gratitude, not as a cliche, but as fuel. Gratitude clears the fog. Gratitude reminds you that even now, even with the pain, the pressure, the problems, you're still standing. You're still here. And that means purpose is still alive inside of you. Then move your body, not for punishment, not for perfection, for energy, for clarity, for motion, because when you move your body, your brain wakes up, your spirit wakes up. That first hour becomes a rhythm, not a routine. And that rhythm becomes the heartbeat of your entire day. Decide who you are before the world tells you who you're not. Set your intention, speak it, write it, hold it in your mind like a torch. If you don't choose your direction, distractions will choose it for you. And they'll never choose greatness, they'll never choose peace, they'll never choose purpose. That's your job. That's your responsibility. That's your power. Don't let the outside world touch you until you've touched your own soul. Don't let anyone else's energy invade your mind before you've centered your own. Because the moment you give your attention away without intention, you start living someone else's story. The most dangerous thing isn't being busy. It's being busy on the wrong path. And that happens when you skip the first hour, when you skip alignment, when you skip the check-in with your higher self. This isn't about perfection. It's not about waking up at 5 a.m. or following someone else's method. It's about ownership. It's about presence. It's about remembering that the way you enter the day determines what the day becomes. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't lead from a scattered mind. You can't create from a place of reaction. The most powerful people don't chase the day. They set it. And it all begins before the phone, before the headlines, before the noise. It begins in that sacred space where the world is still asleep and you are fully awake, aware, intentional, aligned. That's where your strength is built. That's where your peace is protected. That's where your fulfillment is born every single day. So protect that first hour like your life depends on it, because it does. Not the length of your life, but the depth of it, the quality of it. The part of you that feels proud, that feels calm, that feels like you're not just surviving, but creating something real, something beautiful, something that matters. Stillness before noise is not just a practice, it's a lifeline. In a world that never stops talking, never stops pushing, never stops demanding, the power belongs to the one who can be quiet. Because before the world tells you who to be, what to fear, what to chase, you have to sit with yourself and remember, stillness isn't weakness. It isn't laziness. It is strength under control. It is the moment where all the truth rises to the surface, unbothered, undistracted, undiluted. You don't find your direction in the noise. You find it in the stillness you've been avoiding. When you wake up and go straight to chaos, you train your mind to live in reaction. You condition yourself to chase instead of create, to follow instead of lead. But the ones who master their life are the ones who master their morning silence. They sit in it. They let the quiet work on them. They let their thoughts rise without judgment. And somewhere in that deep quiet, beneath the surface of yesterday's stress, today's to-do list, tomorrow's fears, they find themselves. They find peace not because life is perfect, but because they've stopped long enough to feel what's real. You don't have to meditate like a monk or float into enlightenment. Stillness isn't about becoming someone else. It's about coming back to who you actually are before the noise buried it. One breath, one pause, one sacred moment before you give your attention to the world. That's where the shift begins. Because the way you hold yourself in the quiet is the way you carry yourself through the storm. You don't just get stronger by grinding harder. You get stronger by listening deeper, listening to what your soul has been trying to say, but couldn't get a word in over the volume of your habits. Every message, every headline, every notification, someone else's voice. But the voice that will guide you forward, the one that knows, the one that remembers, it's inside you, and you can only hear it when the noise fades. Most people will never meet that version of themselves because they're too busy running from silence, from depth, from the mirror that stillness holds up. But if you want to live with power, if you want to walk through the day anchored and unshakable, you have to start with the pause. The greatest clarity comes in the quiet, not when you're reacting to 10 different voices, but when you're alone with your own. The one voice that doesn't beg for likes, that doesn't care about approval, that doesn't lie to keep you safe. That voice tells you the truth about what you need to do, about what's hurting you, about what's next. But you have to stop long enough to listen. That's why the silence is not optional. It's not a luxury. It's the foundation. You don't build a focused life on noise. You build it on alignment. And alignment starts in stillness. Sit with your breath before you sit with your schedule. Meet yourself before you meet the expectations. Set the tone before the world sets it for you. Because once you let the noise in, it's much harder to go back. But if you start with stillness, you train your mind to lead instead of follow. You become the thermostat, not the thermometer. You don't just react to energy, you set the energy. You walk into rooms calm while everyone else is rushed. You stay present while everyone else is scattered. And it's not because your life is easier. It's because you anchored yourself before the chaos had a chance to sway you. There's a wisdom that only silence gives, a knowing that only stillness reveals. It doesn't shout, it doesn't beg, it waits. And when you finally show up and give it space, it changes everything. You stop chasing what doesn't belong to you. You stop apologizing for your truth. You stop explaining your peace to people addicted to noise. You stop needing the world to approve your path because you've already heard the confirmation in your own soul. The people who are calm in the storm are not lucky. They're not superhuman. They're grounded. They've built their life from the inside out, not the outside in. And that's a choice. Every day, every morning, every moment you choose to pause before you proceed. Breathe before you act. Feel before you decide. It's not dramatic, it's not flashy, but it is powerful. The most powerful people are often the quietest, not because they have nothing to say, but because they've already said what matters in the silence. Stillness is a discipline. It's not always easy. Your mind will try to run. Your phone will try to steal you. The world will tell you that you're being lazy if you're not producing something. But don't fall for that lie. What you're producing in that silence is deeper than any email or text. You're producing clarity. You're producing intention. You're producing presence. And presence is everything. Stillness is where you remember your why. Stillness is where you gather your strength. Stillness is where you remind yourself that you are not here to be consumed by noise. You are here to be guided by truth. And the truth doesn't scream, it whispers. You just have to be quiet enough to hear it. Rituals over randomness is the dividing line between drifting through life and directing it with purpose. A life without rituals is a life constantly reacting, constantly adjusting, constantly being pulled by the next urgent thing. But a life grounded in ritual is a life that moves with intention, with rhythm, with quiet confidence. There is power in repetition, when it's chosen, when it's sacred, when it's yours, because what you do repeatedly is what you become. And if your mornings, your thoughts, your energy are left to randomness, then so is your destiny. Most people wake up and hope the day treats them well. They hope they feel motivated. They hope things go smoothly. But hope is not a strategy, and randomness is not a path to power. What creates results, what builds consistency, what strengthens focus is ritual. Not the kind that's stiff or robotic, the kind that speaks to your soul. The kind that reminds your mind who's in control. The kind that tells your nervous system, I've been here before and I know what I'm doing. Because ritual is more than routine. It's a declaration, a decision, a pattern of alignment that says, I value myself enough to show up with consistency, no matter what the world throws at me. Randomness is emotional. It changes with your feelings. One day you're inspired, the next day you're distracted. One morning you're clear, the next you're scattered. But ritual is stable. Ritual doesn't ask how you feel, it reminds you who you are. And in a world constantly pulling your attention in 50 different directions, you need something that brings you home. You need anchors. You need sacred repetition. You need moments that are yours, unshaken by emails, untouched by noise, untouchable by chaos. Rituals do that. They ground you when everything else spins. It's not about being rigid. It's about being rooted. There's a difference. When you have ritual, you don't need to chase motivation. It meets you at the same place. Every morning, every time you show up, ritual says, even if today is uncertain, I am not. Even if everything out there changes, I won't forget who I am in here. Ritual trains your focus. It trains your nervous system. It trains your spirit to rise before the world demands your energy. And once you've trained yourself to show up on purpose, your life starts reflecting that purpose back to you. Without ritual, every morning is a gamble. Some days you win, some days you fall apart. But when you build rituals that align with your vision, your habits become your armor. They protect your time. They protect your clarity. They protect your peace. A journal isn't just paper, it's a mirror. A breath isn't just oxygen, it's presence. A walk isn't just movement, it's renewal. These are not random tasks. These are sacred rituals that tell the mind we are not living by accident today. You don't need to do 100 things to feel aligned. You need to do a few things with depth, a few things with full presence, a few things so consistently that they begin to shape your identity. That's how growth happens, not in dramatic moments, but in daily devotion. Devotion to who you want to become, devotion to how you want to live, devotion to doing what feeds your mind and calms your spirit, even when it's not convenient. The most fulfilled people don't have more hours in a day. They have more clarity within their hours because they've created structure around their soul. They've stopped leaving their energy to chance. They've designed a rhythm that supports their power. And it doesn't mean they never miss a step. It means when life knocks them off track, their rituals pull them back. Like a compass, like a home, like a contract they've made with themselves that says, I will not abandon my peace for the world's pace. Every time you honor a ritual, you tell your subconscious, this is who I am now. And slowly, that message becomes truth. Slowly, you stop needing reminders because you become the reminder. You've become the embodiment of intention, of steadiness, of grounded action. You walk different, you speak different, you respond different, because your life is no longer ruled by chance, it's governed by choice. That's the power of ritual, not in the act itself, but in the message it sends, that you are no longer waiting to feel powerful. You are choosing to become powerful, daily, quietly, repeatedly. You skip your rituals, you feel it. You might not notice it immediately, but it shows up in your mood, in your focus, in your ability to stay anchored when the world shakes. But when you honor them, your life starts to reflect a deeper order, an inner harmony that doesn't come from control, but from consistency. You become less reactive, less scattered, less available to everything that doesn't serve your path, because you've already filled yourself up. You've already connected. You've already said yes to yourself before the world asks you for anything. So let the world be random. Let it be loud. Let it pull and push. But don't let it take you from your ritual. Build something steady inside the storm and return to it, not when things are perfect, but especially when they're not. Because ritual is how you hold on to who you are, even when life tries to make you forget. Intention before distraction is how you take your power back. Before the world floods in with messages, demands, expectations, noise, you decide. You decide what matters. You decide who you are. You decide how you want to feel, think, and move through the day. And that single decision, made in silence before the storm begins, separates the focused from the scattered, the builders from the reactors, the creators from the consumers. Because when you start your day in reaction, you're already behind. You're chasing instead of choosing. You're responding to someone else's urgency instead of honoring your own clarity. The mind, left unchecked, will follow whatever grabs it first, the text, the headline, the algorithm, the worry. But when you lead with intention, you remind your mind who's in charge. You remind your heart what it's here for. And you remind your spirit that it doesn't need to match the noise of the world to be worthy. That's why the first few minutes of your morning matter more than you think. Before your fingers reach for the phone, before your thoughts spiral into yesterday, you have a window, a rare and powerful window to set your direction. That's not a small thing. That's your life being shaped right there in that quiet decision. Most people hand over their focus before they've even had a moment to connect with it. And then they spend the rest of the day trying to recover what they gave away for free. They wonder why they feel ungrounded, overwhelmed, reactive, because they let the world set the tone. But intention is the act of setting the tone yourself. It's waking up and asking, what do I want this day to feel like? What do I want to give my energy to? What do I need to protect my peace from? That simple practice, done daily, builds a life that's guided from the inside, not pulled from the outside. This isn't about being perfect. It's not about controlling everything. It's about refusing to start your day in chaos. It's about giving your mind a mission before distractions give it 100. Because the first thing you focus on sets the standard for everything else. If you begin with clarity, you'll carry that clarity. If you begin with gratitude, you'll look for more of it. But if you begin in panic, comparison, distraction, you'll stay there. You'll live there. That becomes your emotional home. And it's not because the world is too loud. It's because you didn't speak to yourself before it did. When you lead with intention, everything shifts. Your schedule doesn't own you. Your phone doesn't dictate your emotions. Other people's opinions don't shake your identity. You move slower, but with more force. You speak less, but with more weight. Because you're not just showing up, you're showing up on purpose. And that kind of presence is rare. That kind of presence is powerful. It's the difference between living by default and living by design. Start small. One question in the morning, one decision. What matters most today? Let that question be your anchor. Let that answer shape your steps. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a clear priority. Because clarity creates peace, and peace creates power. Not the loud, chaotic kind, but the steady, grounded kind that doesn't waver when things get difficult. That's what intention gives you. Not just direction, but resilience. Not just focus, but freedom. Because you're no longer tied to the noise, you're tethered to purpose. Distractions will always be there. But they only win when you have nothing more meaningful to follow. And intention gives you that meaning. It reminds you why you started, why you care, why it's worth staying committed even when it's hard. You stop being pulled in 10 directions because you've already chosen your one. You stop getting lost in the urgency of others because you've already made peace with your own priorities. And the best part, it doesn't take an hour. It doesn't take a ritual you can't keep. It takes one clear moment of presence, one breath, one pause before action. That moment where you come back to yourself before you give the world any part of you, that's where the shift happens. That's where the transformation begins. Because when you choose intention before distraction, you're not just choosing a better day, you're choosing a better life. One decision at a time. Most people never slow down long enough to realize how distracted they've become. But if you want to build something meaningful, peace, purpose, legacy, it won't come from scattered effort. It will come from focused energy, protected mornings, intentional steps. You don't need to move faster. You need to move with direction. And that direction is found before the noise, not after it. So pause, breathe, decide. Every morning, before the world screams its demands, before the notifications pull you away, before you start running through the motions, choose yourself. Choose your clarity. Choose to lead your mind before the world tries to hijack it. Because the one who starts with intention doesn't just survive the day, they shape it. And in shaping the day, they shape a life worth waking up for. Discipline equals peace is not just a mindset. It's a truth that reorders your entire life. The world teaches you that peace comes from ease, from comfort, from freedom to do what you want whenever you feel like it. But real peace, the kind that settles deep into your bones, the kind that keeps your heart steady no matter what chaos surrounds you, that kind of peace is born from discipline, from doing what you said you would do, from holding yourself to a higher standard even when nobody's watching, from choosing structure over impulse even when your feelings scream otherwise. Because when you don't live with discipline, you live in conflict with your goals, with your values, with yourself. Every time you break a promise to yourself, your mind records it. And eventually, you stop trusting your own word. You start negotiating with your dreams. You start delaying your progress. You start making peace with mediocrity. But when you live with discipline, everything shifts. You don't need motivation to show up. You don't need someone else to hold you accountable. You become the kind of person who does what needs to be done, no matter how you feel. And that identity, the one who follows through, who stays consistent, who shows up in full, is where real confidence and real peace come from. Most people are trapped by their own undisciplined patterns. They stay up too late, scroll too long, skip the work, break the routine, and then wonder why they feel anxious, behind, disconnected. It's not life that's stealing their peace, it's their own lack of structure. But discipline is the solution, not punishment, not restriction, not perfection. Discipline is the path back to your power. It's what creates the space for creativity, rest, joy, fulfillment, because you're no longer living in survival mode. You're no longer chasing your day, you're leading it. There's a quiet power that comes with doing the hard thing when no one's clapping, waking up early, showing up for your workout, protecting your focus, saying no to what doesn't serve your mission. All of that is discipline, and all of that leads to peace. Not because it's easy, but because it removes the internal conflict that's been eating away at you. You don't have to wrestle with guilt or regret when your actions align with your vision. You don't have to apologize to yourself for choosing comfort over calling. Discipline frees you from that war. The truth is, freedom without structure is chaos. And too many people are drowning in the chaos of their own undisciplined choices. They say they want peace, but their habits create pressure. They say they want clarity, but their days are driven by distraction. They say they want to rise, but they won't commit to the climb. Peace is not found in avoiding discomfort. Peace is found in knowing you've honored what matters, in knowing you've shown up even when it was hard, in knowing you've given yourself fully to your purpose instead of scattering your energy across 1,000 empty places. Discipline simplifies your life. It cuts through the noise. It removes decision fatigue. It quiets the voices that tell you to quit, to wait, to do it later. Because you already know what needs to be done and you do it. That rhythm, that consistency, that inner fire, it doesn't make you rigid. It makes you resilient. It gives you the ability to face challenges without falling apart, to meet resistance without backing down, to stay calm in the storm because you've trained for it. That's where peace lives. In the space beyond excuses, in the place where you've stopped betraying yourself. There's a lie that discipline drains your joy, but what drains your joy is regret. What drains your joy is scattered focus, broken commitments, wasted time. Discipline protects your joy. It builds the foundation for real rest, real happiness, real fulfillment. Because when the work is done, when the mission is honored, when your time is used with intention, you can rest fully. You can breathe deeply. You can live without that nagging feeling that something's missing, something's off, something inside you is being neglected. This isn't about being perfect every day. It's about deciding that your future matters enough to fight for, that your peace is worth protecting, that your life deserves more than autopilot. And once you make that decision, discipline becomes devotion. It becomes love in action. It becomes a daily commitment to becoming the strongest version of yourself, not for applause, not for validation, but because you're tired of the noise, tired of the inner war, tired of living below your potential, because deep down you know who you really are. And discipline is how you meet that version of yourself. It doesn't require a miracle, it requires a choice. Every day, one moment at a time, to rise instead of roll over, to speak truth to yourself instead of settling for comfort, to act on your priorities instead of reacting to distractions. And slowly, through those decisions, you build a life that no longer depends on perfect circumstances for peace. You carry peace within you because you've earned it, you've built it. You've disciplined yourself into alignment with your higher self. And that is where freedom lives, not in doing whatever you want, but in becoming someone who no longer wants what keeps them small. Discipline equals peace, because a disciplined life is a life of truth, a life of purpose, a life that finally quietly feels like home. And so when the world tells you to move faster, to do more, to chase everything, choose differently, choose discipline, choose presence, choose intention, because the peace you're searching for isn't somewhere out there. It's built in the quiet, consistent choices you make when no one's watching. It's found in the rituals that anchor you, the stillness that centers you, the mornings you protect, and the distractions you refuse. This is not about perfection. It's about power, the kind that doesn't shout but stays, the kind that doesn't impress but transforms. Your life will not change by accident. It will change because you chose to live awake, to lead yourself before anything else leads you. And in that choice, day after day, you won't just find focus. You'll find freedom. You'll find fulfillment.